Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Understanding Modern Business and Organisations Week 6 Google Hangout, coming to you live from the University of Strathclyde. Today, in our final Google Hangout, we will put your questions to Dr. Victor Dorfler discussing Week 6 of the course, Making Sense of the Financial Crisis. As usual, please feel free to ask your questions using the Google Hangout question bar, and we will do our best to pass along as many of your questions as we can. You can also post your questions using Twitter and use the hashtag FLModernBiz. And now, without further ado, I will hand you over to Dr. Victor Dorfler.
Hi, welcome to the final Google Hangout of this course. It is with a degree of sadness that I am concluding this course because we were having so much fun over the past 6 weeks. Of course, I'm also very happy to see how much learning has happened here, and it is true for everyone. I have received today messages from the two moderators, how much they have learned, and I have to say that I have also learned a great deal from this course through all this interaction and through the great examples provided, as well as from the questions you were asking. There were quite a lot of questions recently about Mintzberg's idea not to hire MBAs for managerial jobs. It is a very interesting notion that now you can connect to the various parts of the course that we have covered before, and perhaps it is easier to understand what is the essence of Mintzberg's message, don't hire MBAs. The essence is that an MBA course is a course as any other course, okay? So it is happening in the classroom. It is still this kind of teaching learning experience. Now think back about what I was saying about knowledge and competence in week 2. So if you just do the course, it does not make you a manager. Why? Because it is an applied thing. So you need competence. As I said in week 2, you need both sides covered. You need the learning as well as the experiencing covered. Therefore, in order to become a good manager, you need to be competent. And that means that it is not enough to cover the learning part. You also need to cover the experiencing part. A good manager will know the organization inside out. Now, what Mintzberg says is that there are two things about MBA courses that are not good for practicing managers. The first thing is that most MBA courses teach using case studies. Now, as I say it to my students very often, the students have the annoying habit that they learn what I teach them. Therefore, I need to be very careful what I teach them. And what a case study is teaching the students on a meta level is that you can read a case study which is 2 to 20 pages long, and then you can decide what is wrong with the strategy of, let's say, Coca-Cola. And it is impossible. You don't know all those essential things that are happening within the organization. You don't know the daily practices. You don't know the organizational life. You don't know all those small communities that live within that organization and so on. So you are missing out on the experiential side. Now, if you believe that you can do this just reading a couple of pages of condensed material, then you will neglect the applied side, the experience. The other aspect that Mintzberg emphasizes is very much related to this one, and it is that those who do MBAs tend to be quite focused on their careers, and how you get fast ahead in your career is if you change jobs quite frequently. However, in order to learn about your organization really in depth, to know your organization inside out, you cannot do that in 2 weeks. So if you are frequently changing where you work, you will never become competent in terms of the organizational experience. And that experience is essential for a good manager. Now, these are the two main reasons. And if you just link it back, for example, to the competence part of week 2, it is reasonably easy to understand. There were a number of questions coming in relation to various moral and ethical issues. For example, we just got a live question from Terry, who is asking, I just wonder how well business ethics can be put into practices as global standard. In addition, there is no punishment for greedy people who gain huge profit in the financial market in a short time. Why not build up global regulations to minimize those greedy behaviors to build up trust of long-term investors? Now, we need to go back to the definitions of ethics and morality. First of all, we talked about these two as a type of fine regulation as opposed to the normative regulation. The normative regulation is law. So there is expectation, there is an acceptable behavior, deviation from that triggers punishment. So what you are talking about here is really about getting from a moral fine regulation to a different level of regulation, which would be a normative regulation, so that there is punishment. That is, of course, possible, not very easy, because it would mean that the whole world needs to agree on introducing certain normative regulations, but it is outside the realm of ethics. The other side is that I want to link that to a previous question, and it is coming from Aderonke, who is saying, does it mean that one can be ethical yet not morally upright? I mean, one may know what is right, ethical, and ignore it. And that is exactly getting to the essence of the distinction between morality and ethics. Ethics is knowing the principles. Ethics is about figuring out what is right, what is wrong. Ethics is a branch of philosophy. It is not applied. Morality is what is applied. Morality is that struggle that I want to do the right thing or not, and how to do the right thing. What is the right choice in this particular situation? Who are those that I should consider in this particular situation? One of the biggest questions of morality and also of ethics is who should be included as stakeholders in a particular decision. So yes, it is possible that you know what the right thing to do would be and you don't do it. If you have seen the Scent of a Woman movie with Al Pacino, he is telling his young apprentice at one point that when he was making his choices throughout his life, he always knew which the right path was. He just often chose not to walk that path because it was a more difficult one. So yes, very often this is what we do. Bart had a couple of questions. The first one is, he says that he likes watching financial news and looking at the revenues and profits, how they rise and shrink. But of course, he is also taking care of himself, of his body, of his mind. He is learning, eating, he has social interaction, he is separating garbage because it is not good for the environment. Basically, that he is behaving in a more complex way than what we often say about organizations doing. And yes, that is exactly what we would like organizations to do very often. However, this does not mean that organizations do not know about, or those who are leading the organizations do not know about any other aspects that we should look at. So it does not mean that they don't know that they should, for example, use the resources the way that they are that the world remains sustainable and so on. They just sometimes choose not to do it. And that's why, for example, Mintzberg is so strongly arguing against these enormous top executive bonuses, because if you get an enormous bonus because you manage to get your company profitable for that 1 year, that will make you, if you are greedy enough that money, that bonus is worth enough to you, then you will probably make some choices based on trying to maximize your own income rather than to do something that is good for the world more globally and even what is good for your organization on longer term. That links to another question about the triple bottom line. I just cannot find it at the moment. Anyway, here it is. So it was coming from Robert Knight, who said used an example about supermarkets who are causing the big problems to the chains called Big Four, and that the success of these challengers of the Big Four is due part to the customers making decision to move their allegiances, in part because of the cost and in part because of the product range. Is this a triple bottom line? Well, it is a tricky question. The simple answer is no. The triple bottom line has its definition as drawing the line not only in financial terms, so how much money we made, how much money we invested, and so on, to have that difference called profit, but also to do something similar in terms of the social impact. So how we impact the society. For example, if we create jobs, that would mean that we are doing something good for the society. If we are firing people, if we are making all sorts of negative, social negative choices for the community in which we live, or for the more global community of the world, then it would be the negative. Now, many try to balance it, and you will see very often that how many organizations try to deal with it is to get some sponsorship, usually spending more money to advertise that sponsorship than on the sponsorship itself, and they want to emphasize this social side of how good they are doing. And the third bottom line is the sustainability in terms of the environmental or ecological sense. So, for example, you are cutting trees because you need the trees for your production, and you are also putting new trees in the ground, and you are raising them and so on. So you have some sort of balance here. But there are lots of different ways of how we can impact the environment, and very often we don't even understand this. Very often we only find out later on what kind of impact we have made. For example, if you think about the ozone hole problem, that is something that organizations, people, nobody was aware of until Sherwood Rowland and his doctoral student, actually postdoctoral researchers at the time. I cannot remember his name at the moment. They discovered it, and then they figured out what is causing this kind of damage to our living environment. And that means that before that we could not draw that part of the bottom line in any realistic sense. Very often it is just a couple of people who know about it. Even they cannot prove it. Sometimes nobody knows about it, but it takes long time until we figure all these types of impact out. There was again a kind of related question. It is coming also from Robert Knight, and it is about making an argument. Trying to draw parallels between apprentices and children. And he's asking whether we are teaching our children this kind of things. And he's talking about his family background, where his great-grandfather was known as the master decorator, and then his grandfather was also eventually becoming a master decorator. Then he also had a plumber in the family, and he says that he is not a master decorator or a plumber, but he is reasonably competent in all these areas. Now, this is one side, this is the knowledge side, and of course we learn quite a lot from our parents, and our parents obviously play enormous role in that, and we play the same kind of role for our children. Just think about acquiring the knowledge of your primary language. That the primary source of this is always your parents. Now, this is not a master-apprentice relationship. In many ways it is similar because it is also following this kind of pattern of using intelligent imitation of the examples that you see in front of you. So you are imitating your parents, that's how you start speaking your native language. However, this does not mean that you will not become better at speaking in that language than your parents ever were. Of course, there is a parallel to this in master-apprentice relationship in terms of the disciplinary knowledge that you are acquiring from your master. You can one day become better than your master when you are also a master and you are also having your own apprentices and so on. There are lots of other similarities as well. For example, one of the rare examples of asymmetric reciprocity is what you see in the master-apprentice relationship. So if, for example, I think back on my own experiences as an apprentice, I can safely say that I can never repay my master Zoltán Baracskai for all those things that he has done for me, what I have learned from him and so on. That's one side of the deal. The other side is that I don't have to. My role is not to repay him. That's the essence of the asymmetric reciprocity. I repay that debt to my own apprentices. Okay, so I am providing them with the same sort of teaching and examples that I was acquiring from my master. And this is very similar to the parent-child relationship. So if we think about all those things that we got from our parents, there is absolutely no chance to repay them. But we don't need to. We need to repay this debt through our own children. So we do the same kind of things, of course, different as the times are different, for our own children. Now, these are the similarities. There are also differences. And the difference is perhaps most easier to understand if I quote a master architect, Imre Makovec. He's a Hungarian master architect, and he said at one point that there was a disciple asking for him to be his master, and he said that he could not accept this guy because he did not have the relationship with his father sorted out. The father here really means the dominant parent, so it is gender neutral, but usually one parent is dominant. Now, if the relationship of the child was not very good with that dominant parent, then this person will not be able to engage in a proper master-apprentice relationship, because he or she will seek a dominant parent with whom he or she will have a good relationship. So that's the essence of that message. Now, there is again the second part of the question, and it is about responsibility. Now, of course, we are teaching our children responsibility, and that is happening through those examples and by transmitting the values. That is also similarity between the master-apprentice and the parent-child relationship, that both of them are very focused on transmitting values. Now, what is interesting, however, I mentioned somewhere in week 2, when I was talking about the competence, that there are different levels of knowledge, and that you need, in order to be really competent, you need high level of knowledge. Now, I have a model about these levels of knowledge where I distinguish 5 different levels of knowledge, borrowing the vocabulary from chess. So the highest knowledge level is called the grandmaster level. Now, in this model, it can be shown that simply from the cognitive side of the thing, the feeling of responsibility cannot develop before level 3. You can still adhere to values, and that's where the parent-child relationship is so incredibly important, that these values will help you choose the right behavior without thinking too much about it, okay? So you adhere to certain values, you follow them, you behave according to them. simply because that's what you have seen from your parents or your teachers or whoever else you are in contact with. However, the deep sense of responsibility is not possible before you reach the third level of knowledge, for a simple reason that you don't see how your actions are, what are the consequences of your actions. So you don't have the grasp of the bigger totality that you need to cover. And Aidan is waving me that I should be drawing this hangout to its finish. So I would just like to thank you one more time for participating in this course and for all your contributions, both in terms of questions and the examples provided. There was a very interesting question about the innovativeness of MOOCs, and I carried away a little bit when I was trying to answer what was innovative of this particular MOOC. So I would like to say a few words about this in this conclusion. What was particularly innovative about this MOOC is that, for example, I have never seen a MOOC that is trying to give you a big picture. So this MOOC was about the big picture of business. And if you would try to put your finger on what is exactly what you have learned, there will probably be some small things, but it is not really the important part. The important part is that you grasp the totality of the world of modern business and organizations better. So you did develop some understanding of modern business and organizations. The second one was the content structure. So this was a new thing. I was working with my master, helping me for 3 months, just developing that map that you have seen with those 3 types of topics. So the up-to-date, the trigger, and the upcoming concepts, and I intentionally left it open-ended where the upcoming concepts are ending. Now, what was really tricky, why it took me 3 months to figure out this content structure? The essence was that what I wanted to achieve is to cover all the areas or sufficient number of concepts with which you will have a web from which you can then transfer to other areas and understand all the other phenomena that is happening in the world of modern business and organizations. So in that sense, the financial crisis was, for example, simply an example of a phenomenon which is quite complex and which you can make sense of using the concepts that you have acquired over these 6 weeks. But there were quite a few questions about various areas, why they were not included. For example, more explicit account of sustainability. But if you think about what you have acquired in globalization, in ethics, in knowledge and technology, you can draw from these concepts a sufficient net which can help you interpret sustainability phenomena that were not directly covered in the course. So these are really the innovations that I was trying to implement, and I had a great team supporting me in that, and I would like to say a huge thank you to all of them who were also in the developmental stage as well as in the delivery stage, and their names are included at the end of the week 6. Thank you very much for being with us for these 6 weeks, and hope to see you again on a different MOOC.
Thank you, Dr. Dorfler, and thank you to everyone who participated in the Hangout today. We have now reached the end of the course. We hope you've enjoyed taking part in the course as much as we enjoyed creating it for you. Thank you for all your comments and your feedback over the past few weeks. From all of us here in Glasgow, thank you and goodbye.